Hello candidates, I am going to dictate you a passage of 900 words. So please get ready for the dictation. The dictation will start after 15 seconds. Roughly a week after the Indian Space Research Organization (ISRO) soft-landed a robotic lander and rover on the Moon's south polar region, it launched India's first space mission dedicated to studying the Sun in the form of a spacecraft named Aditya L1. Barely half a day after the launch, ISRO announced that its lunar rover had completed the surface studies it had planned and that it had been parked ahead of the 2 week long lunar night. This vignette illustrates a certain maturity on the part of the Indian space program. It enters a phase where its growth from strength to strength becomes indistinguishable from international leadership in space exploration, even as it carries forward an old tradition of studying the Sun exemplified by the Kodaikanal Solar Observatory. Aditya L1 will study the Sun in multiple wavelengths with its suite of 7 instruments, 4 remote sensing and 3 in suite, that is by directly sampling a particular volume of a space. Even though it is the star closest to the Earth and has been and continues to be observed by a panoply of telescopes, the Sun still holds many secrets. Some of them are simply waiting to be discovered, although that is easier said than done given the brutality of the star's influence on its immediate surroundings. One example is the particulars of the solar wind, a stream of charged particles that stream out from the sun into a space. Considering the solar wind affects a space weather and in turn the digital components of a spacecraft, Aditya L1's findings could inform future space missions as well. Others are mysteries, bundles of facts not yet fully explained by scientific theories. The archetypal example is the coronal heating problem. Why the uppermost layer of the sun's atmosphere is 1,000 times hotter than the sun's surface. I beg to move that the bill to amend the Cinematograph Act 1952 as passed by the House of the People be taken into consideration. This bill, sir, is a very minor one. The Cinematograph Act 1952, which was passed in that year, mainly reenacted the provisions of the 1918 Act. Only it separated matters relating to sanction of cinema films for exhibition from matters relating to licensing and regulation of cinemas because the latter is a state subject and the former is the union subject. The Act has now been functioning, sir, for nearly 2 years, but in carrying out the provisions of the Act, certain defects have come to notice which make the act practically inoperative. And it is for this reason that we have come before the council for remedying these defects. That is the sole purpose of this act. In the First Amendment suggested, it has been made obligatory for any person who sells or distributes a film to furnish the person to whom he is selling the film with all the particulars regarding the film. This was necessitated by the fact that in certain cases which were brought before the courts for infringement of the provisions of the Act, as for example, in the case where an exhibitor showed a film which had certain portions in it uncertified or which had certain new additions, the court acquitted the accused, saying that it was quite possible that they were exhibiting in the picture itself certain uncertified portions, but there was no legal responsibility on the accused by which the court can hold him to be culpable. In a recent case, the Chief Presidency Magistrate of Bombay held that unless there is answer that is legal responsibility on the accused, it is not possible for him to convict him. If there is a lacuna in the act, that is what the magistrate said, then the remedy lies in amending the act and not in trying to interpret it or stretch it in such a way that it will have another meaning. Now, after two or three such cases had come before us, we had the matter re-examined and we found that there is such a lacuna, and unless the obligation was fixed on the persons concerned who distributed or exhibited a film, it will not be possible for us to hold them responsible before a court of law, and if we could not do that, then it is no use having the act functioning because the act becomes practically inoperative. All the provisions of the act will be there, but if there is anything wrong, the government will not be able to take any action against the person concerned. So, in a view of the judgments of the courts and the observations of the magistrate of Bombay, the new section 6A, which is given here, has been proposed. A suit was instituted in 1950 before the civil judge at Faizabad by a Hindu worshipper, Gopal Singh Visarad, seeking a declaration that according to his religion and custom he is entitled to offer prayers at the main Janmabhoomi temple near the idols. The Nirmohi Akhada represents a religious sect amongst the Hindus known as the Ramnandi Bairagis. The Nirmohis claim that they were at all material times in charge and management of the structure at the disputed site, which according to them was a temple until 29 December 1949, on which date an attachment was ordered under section 145 of the Code of Criminal Procedure 1898. In effect, they claim as sabbats in service of the deity, managing its affairs and receiving offerings from devotees. Theirs is a suit of 1959 for the management and charge of the temple.